Imagine this. You wake up one morning, the sunlight streaming through your window, the world outside buzzing with its usual rhythm. You go about your day, work, conversations, decisions, all seemingly under your control. But what if, in the quiet moments between your thoughts, something far more powerful is at work? What if every choice you make, every emotion you feel, every belief you hold is not truly yours, but the product of an unseen force lurking beneath the surface of your awareness? This is not a dystopian fantasy. This is your reality. The subconscious mind is not just a passive repository of forgotten memories or random dreams. It is the architect of your life, the silent puppeteer pulling the strings of your thoughts, actions, and perceptions. It shapes your reality in ways you cannot begin to fathom, yet you remain blissfully unaware of its influence. You believe you are in control. But what if control itself is an illusion? Here's the unsettling paradox. You are both the creator and the prisoner of your own mind. You build the walls of your reality, brick by brick, through the stories you tell yourself, the fears you bury, and the desires you chase. Yet at the same time you are trapped within those walls, unable to see beyond them. How can you be both the architect and the captive? How can you break free from a prison you don't even realize exists? Consider this. Why do you keep repeating the same mistakes even when you know better? Why do you feel inexplicably drawn to certain people or situations even when they harm you? Why do you sabotage your own success just as you're on the verge of achieving it? These are not random occurrences. They are the fingerprints of your subconscious, the echoes of a deeper, hidden self that operates beyond the reach of your conscious awareness. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." This is the great question that haunts us all. How much of your life is truly yours, and how much is dictated by forces you cannot see or understand? What if the key to unlocking your full potential lies not in striving harder, but in diving deeper into the shadows of your own mind? The subconscious is not just a psychological concept, it is a philosophical enigma. It challenges our very notion of free will, of identity, of reality itself. If your thoughts and actions are shaped by something beyond your conscious control, then who are you, really? Are you the one making the choices? Or are you merely a vessel for the hidden currents of your psyche? This is not just an intellectual exercise, it is an urgent call to self-awareness. Because the truth is, your subconscious is not just shaping your reality, it is shaping the world around you. Every decision you make, every relationship you form, every belief you hold contributes to the collective reality we all share. And if we are all living in a world shaped by unseen forces, then what does that say about the future we are creating? The weight of this realization is immense. It forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth that we are not as autonomous as we like to believe. But it also offers a glimmer of hope, because if the subconscious can shape our reality, then it can also be reshaped. The question is, are you willing to look into the abyss of your own mind? Are you ready to face the shadows that have been guiding your life? This is not a journey for the faint of heart. It requires courage, curiosity, and a willingness to question everything you think you know about yourself. But the reward is nothing less than the freedom to reclaim your reality, to step out of the shadows and into the light of true self-awareness. So, as you sit here reading these words, ask yourself, What lies beneath the surface of your mind? What hidden forces are shaping your reality? And what would happen if you dared to bring them into the light? The answer may change everything. You sit in a quiet room, staring at the wall, convinced you are alone with your thoughts. But you are not alone. Beneath the surface of your awareness, a storm rages. A cacophony of instincts, memories, and inherited traumas, all whispering directives you never consciously agreed to follow. This is the hidden problem. Your subconscious is not just a passive observer. It is a living, breathing ecosystem shaped by forces far older and more primal than your modern self could ever comprehend. To understand why this labyrinth exists, we must journey back, not to your childhood, but to the dawn of humanity. Evolution did not design the subconscious to serve your happiness or fulfillment. It designed it to keep you alive. Buried within its depths are ancient survival scripts. The fear of rejection, exile meant death. The craving for belonging, tribal acceptance ensured safety. The obsession with status, dominance secured resources. These programs were forged in a world of scarcity and danger, yet they still govern your behavior in a world of abundance and connection. You are a Stone Age mind, trapped in a digital age, fighting battles that no longer exist. Carl Jung called this the collective unconscious, a reservoir of archetypes and instincts shared by all humans, passed down like genetic code. But here lies the trap. The subconscious does not distinguish between literal survival and symbolic threats. A critical email from your boss triggers the same panic as a predator's growl. A social media slight floods your body with the cortisol of a tribal outcast. You are not reacting to reality, you are reacting to ghosts. Modern society amplifies this dissonance. Aldous Huxley warned of a world distracted by pleasure and comfort, where humans willingly enslave themselves to trivial desires. But the true horror is subtler. Your subconscious has been hijacked by systems that profit from your primal wiring. Social media algorithms exploit your need for validation, turning likes into dopamine hits that mirror tribal approval. Consumer culture manipulates your fear of inadequacy, convincing you that self-worth lies in possessions. Even education and religion, once guides to deeper meaning, often reinforce obedience to external hierarchies rather than inner truth. You are not living your life, you are performing it, reciting lines written by ancestors, corporations, and algorithms. This brings us to the philosophical heart of the problem: existential avoidance. The subconscious thrives in darkness because consciousness is terrifying. To be fully aware is to confront what Jean-Paul Sartre called the anguish of freedom, the realization that you are utterly responsible for your choices, your values, your existence. Most would rather bury this truth beneath layers of routine, distraction, and self-deception. Sartre named this bad faith, the lie we tell ourselves to avoid the weight of being truly alive. You cling to identities, parent, employee, activist, not because they define you, but because they absolve you of the burden of inventing yourself anew each day. Friedrich Nietzsche saw this cowardice as humanity's greatest flaw. Man would rather will nothingness than not will, he wrote. We would rather follow inherited myths, even those that destroy us, than face the abyss of meaninglessness. Your subconscious becomes a dumping ground for everything you refuse to confront: repressed grief, unspoken rage, forbidden desires. These exiled fragments don't vanish. They fester, morphing into self-sabotage, chronic anxiety, and a haunting sense of emptiness. You become a stranger to yourself, haunted by a life half-lived. Arthur Schopenhauer offered a bleaker lens. The subconscious is driven by a blind, insatiable will, a cosmic force that cares nothing for your happiness. It wants only to survive, reproduce, and consume. In his view, human suffering stems from this endless striving, this pendulum between pain and boredom. Modern life validates his pessimism. You chase promotions, relationships, and milestones, believing achievement will quiet the hunger. But the will always returns, demanding more. You are Sisyphus, rolling the boulder of desire up the hill, only to watch it crash back down, again and again and again. Yet there is a perverse irony here. The more you try to control your subconscious, through positive affirmations, productivity hacks, or sheer willpower, the tighter its grip becomes. Psychology confirms this. Suppressed emotions gain power in the shadows. Cognitive biases like the illusion of control and confirmation bias act as prison guards, filtering reality to fit your subconscious narratives. You don't see the world as it is, you see it as you are. A person convinced they are unworthy will twist kindness into pity, success into luck, love into manipulation. The subconscious is a master storyteller, and you are both its author and its captive audience. Viktor Frankl, survivor of Auschwitz and founder of logotherapy, proposed a radical counterpoint. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies your power to choose. But how do you find that space when your subconscious has already written the script? The answer lies not in fighting the darkness, but in illuminating it. A task that requires brutal honesty and a willingness to descend into the underworld of your own psyche. This is where the real work begins, because the subconscious is not your enemy. It is a disowned part of yourself, a repository of unlived life. It holds the grief you were told not to cry, the anger you were shamed for feeling, the creativity you buried under practicality. Until you reclaim these fragments, you will remain split, a conscious mind preaching ideals while your subconscious whispers lies in the dark. But here's the dilemma. How do you confront something you can't see? How do you decode a language older than words? The path is neither linear nor safe. It demands rituals older than therapy. Journaling at 3 a.m., staring into the mirror until your mask cracks, sitting with pain until it reveals its purpose. It requires philosophies that reject easy answers. Nietzsche's command to become who you are, Jung's warning that wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, Sartre's insistence that hell is other people, but also that freedom is your cross to bear. You stand at a crossroads. One path leads deeper into the illusion, the false comfort of blaming the world, numbing the pain, playing the role assigned to you. The other leads into the unknown, the raw, unedited truth of who you are beneath the layers of conditioning. The choice is yours. But know this: the subconscious will keep shaping your reality with or without your consent. The real question is, will you dare to meet it? You walk through a crowded street, surrounded by faces glued to screens, and wonder, why does everything feel so familiar? The same political arguments, the same cycles of burnout and consumption, the same hollow victories. You chalk it up to human nature. But the truth is far more insidious. Your subconscious is not just shaping your reality, it is weaving the fabric of the world itself. Every cultural norm, every systemic injustice, every collective delusion is born from the collision of billions of invisible inner worlds. Let's start with a simple experiment. Think of your mind as a radio tower, constantly broadcasting and receiving signals. Your subconscious beliefs act as filters, distorting what you perceive. Cognitive scientists call this predictive processing. Your brain doesn't process raw data. It predicts, then edits reality to match its expectations. A person convinced they're unlovable will misinterpret kindness as pity. A society convinced of scarcity will hoard resources while children starve. This isn't metaphor, it's neuroscience. Your brain literally hallucinates reality, then edits the footage to fit your subconscious script. But here's where it gets dangerous. These distortions compound. Your subconscious biases, confirmation bias, negativity bias, the halo effect, aren't just personal quirks. They're the building blocks of cultural hypnosis. Social media algorithms exploit this, feeding you content that reinforces your existing beliefs until your worldview hardens into dogma. Political polarization. It's not a failure of dialogue. It's millions of subconscious echo chambers colliding, each side convinced their hallucination is truth. Dostoevsky saw this coming. The formula, 2 and 2 make 5, is not without its attractions, he wrote. We don't fight over facts, we fight over fantasies. Dive deeper and you'll find the subconscious roots of modern epidemics. Take loneliness. You scroll through curated lives, feeling emptier with each swipe. This isn't just FOMO, it's your subconscious comparing your raw footage to others' highlight reels. A mismatch evolution never prepared you for. Our ancestors measured worth through tribal contribution. Now you measure it through likes, a dopamine-driven parody of belonging. Psychologist Jean Twenge calls this the collapse of the relational world, but the collapse began long before smartphones. It began when we outsourced our self-worth to external mirrors. Or consider consumerism. Every advertisement is a subconscious hack, a promise that buying this will make you that, worthy, safe, desired. But as Erich Fromm observed, modern humans have shifted from being to having modes of existence. You don't buy objects, you buy identity fragments. The car isn't transportation, it's a talisman against inferiority. The gym membership isn't health, it's armor against mortality. Yet no purchase fills the void, because the void isn't material, it's existential. A subconscious hunger for meaning in a world that worships means. The most devastating consequence, though, is the erasure of agency. Neurological studies reveal that decisions form in the subconscious up to 10 seconds before we're aware of choosing them. You think you picked your career, your partner, your beliefs. Look closer. A child praised for obedience becomes an adult addicted to approval. A teenager mocked for curiosity becomes a parent who kills creativity. Generation after generation, subconscious wounds replicate like viruses. Nietzsche's eternal recurrence isn't a cosmic loop. It's the psychological inheritance we refuse to confront. This brings us to the great irony of modernity. We pride ourselves on progress, yet remain enslaved to primal patterns. Cancel culture? It's tribal shaming dressed as justice. Conspiracy theories? They're the mind's desperate attempt to impose order on chaos, even if that order is monstrous. The trolley problem of self-driving cars? A subconscious confession that we'd rather algorithmize morality than face its ambiguity. Aldous Huxley's Brave New World warned of pleasure as a tool of control, but he missed the darker truth. We don't need tyrants to enforce conformity. Our own subconscious does it for free. Even your body is a battleground. Psychosomatic illness, chronic fatigue, autoimmune disorders, these are not mere malfunctions. They're the somatic cry of a subconscious pushed past its limits. Gabor Maté's research reveals a chilling link between repressed trauma and disease. The body says what the mouth cannot. You clench your jaw to silence rage and develop TMJ. You swallow grief and your stomach turns to stone. The subconscious doesn't forget. It converts unspoken pain into symptoms, a Morse code of suffering etched into flesh. On a societal scale, this manifests as collective self-destruction. Climate change isn't just industrial greed. It's the culmination of a subconscious belief that growth is infinite and consequences are someone else's problem. Systemic inequality isn't just policy failure. It's the shadow of tribal hierarchies repackaged for the modern age. Even our obsession with apocalypse movies reflects a subconscious craving for catharsis, a perverse hope that annihilation might finally mean something. The philosopher Slavoj Žižek argues that we're more afraid of confronting our subconscious than facing actual disasters. We can imagine the end of the world, but not the end of capitalism. Why? Because to question the system is to question the self. Your identity is enmeshed with the status quo, your mortgage, your career, your Netflix subscription. To awaken is to risk losing not just comfort, but the very foundation of who you are. So we cling to the devil we know, even as it devours us. This is the ultimate trap. The subconscious sustains itself through fear of itself. You avoid meditation because stillness might reveal your emptiness. You numb yourself with productivity because idle hands might unearth buried truths. You demonize others, the opposing political party, the different culture, the estranged family member, because their existence threatens your fragile self-narrative. Carl Jung called this enantiodromia, the tendency of the psyche to split into opposites, then wage war against itself. Look at the world. It's not a clash of ideologies, it's a global-scale civil war within the human soul. Yet there's a haunting beauty in this realization. Your pain, your addictions, your irrational fears, they're not flaws, they're clues. A map to the wounded, disowned parts of yourself waiting to be reclaimed. The anxiety that hijacks your breath. It's the ghost of a child who learned the world wasn't safe. The perfectionism that drives you to collapse. It's the echo of a parent's conditional love. These aren't mistakes to fix. They're messages to decipher. But how do you decipher a code written in the language of dreams, symbols, and bodily sensations? How do you navigate a labyrinth where the walls shift with every suppressed memory? The answer lies not in analysis, but in alchemy, transforming leaden trauma into golden awareness. It requires tools far older than psychology. The courage to confront nightmares without flinching, the willingness to love the monster under your bed, the humility to admit you've been both prisoner and jailer. You're beginning to see it now, aren't you? The patterns, the loops, the invisible hands that mold your thoughts like clay. This isn't paranoia. It's the first flicker of true sight. The realization that reality is not a given, but a negotiation between light and shadow. The question is no longer, what is real? It's, what have I agreed not to see? And more urgently, what happens if I start seeing it anyway? Begin with a jarring truth. The greatest rebellion is not against society, governments, or even your circumstances. It is against your own mind. You've spent a lifetime negotiating with your subconscious, pleading with it, numbing it, outsourcing its demands to therapists and self-help gurus. But here's the secret no one tells you. You cannot reason with a dictator. To break free, you must stage a coup. The myth of control. You've tried affirmations, meditation apps, vision boards. You've treated your subconscious like a misbehaving child, scolding it with mantras and bribing it with gratitude journals. But it's time to admit the truth. You've been negotiating with a shadow. The subconscious doesn't respond to logic because it is logic, the raw, primal kind. It speaks in symbols, sensations, and survival imperatives. To rebel against its rule, you must speak its language. Consider Viktor Frankl in Auschwitz, stripped of everything but his mind. He couldn't control the guards, the cold, or the hunger. But he discovered a loophole. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space, he chose meaning. He whispered to dying prisoners, "Life has not ceased to ask something of us." His rebellion wasn't against the camp, it was against despair itself. He rewrote his subconscious script from victim to witness, from prisoner to philosopher. This is the first law of rebellion. Stop trying to change your thoughts. Change what they mean. The alchemy of shadow work. Carl Jung warned, what you resist not only persists but will grow in size. The subconscious isn't a villain, it's a disowned artist, painting your life with the only colors it knows: fear, desire, and inherited trauma. To rebel, you must invite it into the light. Step 1. Become an archaeologist of pain. Sit with your worst memory, not to analyze it, but to let it breathe. When shame rises, ask, whose voice is this? A parent's criticism fossilized into self-hatred? A lover's betrayal masquerading as trust issues? Trace the roots. A woman haunted by abandonment digs until she unearths a childhood photo, her father's empty chair at dinner. She writes a letter she'll never send. You left, but I stayed. And now, I'm leaving you. The chair becomes a symbol, not of loss, but of freedom. Step 2. Rewrite the code. Nietzsche's eternal recurrence asks, what if you had to relive this life endlessly? Use it as a weapon. Every time your subconscious whispers, you're not good enough, counter with, if I had to hear this lie forever, what truth would make it bearable? A man plagued by imposter syndrome starts answering emails with, I am here because I earned it. At first, it feels like a lie. By the 100th repetition, it becomes a war cry. Step 3. Burn the mask. Jean-Paul Sartre wrote, we are our choices. But first, you must see the masks. A CEO realizes he's spent 20 years playing the strong leader to escape the shy boy bullied on the playground. He starts admitting, I don't know, in board meetings. His team leans in closer. The mask crumbles. The man emerges. Cognitive disobedience, a manual. 1. Create reality gaps. When anxiety strikes, ask, is this mine? A woman notices her dread of public speaking peaks every Tuesday at 3 p.m. She traces it to her mother's weekly panic attacks after soap operas. The fear isn't hers. It's a ghost. She starts speaking at 3 p.m. on purpose, reclaiming the hour as hers. 2. Hijack your biases. Your brain clings to negativity for survival. Outwit it. Every night a man writes one sentence that defies his worldview. Today, a stranger smiled at me for no reason. Over months, his subconscious learns safety exists. 3. Practice existential jujitsu. When the subconscious says, you can't, reply, what if I could? An artist paralyzed by perfectionism starts destroying her work after each session. Smashing pottery becomes a ritual. If nothing is permanent, I'm free to create. The forbidden truth about self-help. The industry preaches self-optimization. Fix yourself. Be better. But true rebellion is refusing the premise. You don't need more discipline. You need sovereignty. A recovering addict stops counting sober days. Instead, he asks each morning, "What does life want from me today?" The compulsion loosens its grip. He's no longer fighting a monster, he's conversing with it. The ripple effect. Rebellion is contagious. When you stop people-pleasing, you give others permission to do the same. When you embrace contradictions, you dismantle tribal thinking. A community organizer plagued by burnout starts saying, "I don't know," in meetings. Slowly, others admit confusion. The group shifts from performative certainty to collective problem-solving. Even your biology rebels. Studies show that rewriting subconscious narratives lowers cortisol, boosts immune function. Your cells align with your revolution. The price of freedom. This is not redemption, it's reinvention. Expect resistance. Relationships will fray. Those who loved your mask will resent your face. Careers may crumble. But in the ruins, you'll find something primal, unbreakable, your unlived life. A lawyer quits her firm to teach poetry in prisons. Her subconscious, trained to chase prestige, screams. She answers, "This is what survival looks like now." The bridge to the final truth. You've stormed the palace. You've dethroned old gods. But one question remains. Who will you become when the war is over? This is no longer about rebellion, it's about reclamation. You stand before a mirror, but the reflection is not your own. It is 1,000 faces superimposed. The child you were, the stranger you became, the ancestor you've forgotten, the myth you might yet embody. This is not a hallucination. This is the ultimate truth. You are not a self. You are a conversation, a dialogue between the seen and unseen, the spoken and unspeakable, the life you live and the one you exile to the shadows. And in this revelation lies the key to everything. The subconscious is not a separate entity. It is you. The you that existed before language, before shame, before the world told you who to be. It is the part of you that remembers how to breathe underwater in dreams, that recognizes a lover's touch before your mind registers their name, that senses death in a room long before the monitor flatlines. It is not your enemy. It is your oldest ally, the keeper of truths too vast for daylight. Here is the final shattering realization. Your subconscious does not shape your reality. It is your reality. The world you experience is not an external phenomenon. It is a projection, a living portrait painted with the pigments of your unlived life. The anger you deny becomes the boss who berates you. The creativity you abandoned becomes the friend who betrays your trust. The love you fear becomes the partner who leaves. You are not a victim of circumstance. You are a prophet meeting your own prophecies, a god colluding in your own crucifixion. This is what Jung meant when he wrote, "The world hangs by a thin thread, and that thread is the psyche." Your wars, your relationships, your triumphs and disasters, they are not happening to you. They are happening through you. The political leader you despise, he's your disowned hunger for power. The homeless man you ignore, he is your exiled vulnerability. Even the moon outside your window, its tides mirror the ones you've hidden since childhood. There is no out there. The cosmos is a hall of mirrors, and every reflection whispers, "This is you. All of this is you." Nietzsche glimpsed this truth in his madness. You are the abyss and the rope across it. The anxiety you medicate, the addiction you fight, the void you fill with noise, they are not flaws. They are sacred alarms, sounding because you've mistaken the map for the territory, the menu for the meal. Your subconscious has been trying to wake you through symptoms and synchronicities, through breakdowns and déjà vu, through every sleepless 3 a.m. when the masks slip and you feel the raw isness of existence. But here's the paradox that changes everything. You cannot heal until you stop trying to heal. The moment you cease warring with your subconscious, the moment you stop seeking enlightenment or fixing your broken self, you step into your true power. A man who thinks he's drowning will die thrashing in 3 feet of water. A man who realizes he is the ocean cannot drown. This is not metaphor. Neuroscience confirms that the brain does not distinguish between physical and psychological threats. Your cells respond to imagined slights as if they're mortal blows. But the inverse is also true. When you stop resisting your shadows, when you stare into the abyss and whisper, "I see you," your biology shifts. Cortisol drops, neural pathways rewire, the immune system rallies. You become, quite literally, a different organism, one no longer at war with itself. The ultimate truth is this: reality is a negotiation between what you dare to claim and what you refuse to face. Every moment, you're choosing, consciously or not, which parts of yourself get to exist. The real world is merely the sum of these choices crystallized. A woman who spent decades fearing abandonment moves to a new city alone. On her first night, she dreams of a black wolf circling her apartment. Instead of fleeing, she opens the door. The wolf enters, lies at her feet, becomes a shadow merging with her own. When she wakes, she understands. The loneliness she ran from was never about others. It was the price of keeping herself caged. That day, she eats breakfast in silence, no podcast or music, and discovers a shocking truth. The silence isn't empty, it's alive. This is what the mystics meant by enlightenment. Not some celestial graduation, but the courage to embrace paradox, to be both the wound and the salve, the prisoner and the key, the dreamer and the dream. You want proof? Look at history's great rebels, those who changed reality by changing their inner world. Viktor Frankl found meaning in Auschwitz. Nelson Mandela forgave his jailers. Helen Keller called blindness her soul's birthday. They didn't transcend suffering. They alchemized it by refusing to split themselves into good and bad, victim and victor. They became whole, and in doing so, made the world whole through them. The final revelation is both brutal and beautiful. There is no subconscious. The term was always a placeholder for the parts of yourself you deemed too dangerous, too wild, too divine to acknowledge. Split mind, split world, healed mind, healed world. So where does this leave you? With a simple choice, repeated moment by moment. Will you continue performing reality, or will you birth it? The answer is written in every sunset you've ever wept over, every injustice that made your hands shake, every silent prayer sent into the void. You are the void, and you are the prayer. When you walk out into the world tomorrow, remember, the angry driver cutting you off is your impatience incarnate. The cherry blossom petal clinging to your windshield is your tenderness refusing to die. The night sky isn't above you, it's within you, stars flickering in the neural cosmos of your brain. You are not living a life, you are dreaming a universe. The ultimate truth, you've been free all along and you just forgot to tell yourself.